In early spring of 2023, Eric and Marlena Whitmore, an American couple in their mid-40s, purchased a home in Cairo's Garden City district. The house, while not listed publicly, had passed quietly between owners until it was offered through a discreet Egyptian real estate agent to international buyers who were drawn to history. That was how it was worded. History. What they didn't know at first was that the home once belonged to Omar Sharif. Not the villa he was most known for in Alexandria. Not the one by the sea. This was a lesser-known Cairo property he'd kept for privacy. A 3-story, Ottoman-style house tucked between high walls and flowering vines, just beyond the dusty reach of Tahrir Square. It had faded from public knowledge, like many pieces of his life, yet carried an undeniable gravity. The kind you feel in your chest as soon as you cross the threshold. Eric was an architect on sabbatical. Marlena worked remotely in digital publishing. They weren't believers in ghosts, omens, or even religion, really. They were pragmatists. But even pragmatists can feel when a house is too quiet. The first few weeks were ordinary. They painted. They opened sealed rooms. They explored closets full of brittle European newspapers and stacks of Arabic calligraphy. The house had been vacant for nearly a decade, and the dust had settled like a second skin. Yet, beneath the neglect, it had grace. It was during the second month after they hosted their first guests that things started happening. Their friend Michelle from London was the first to say it. "Who's the man in the hallway?" she asked at breakfast, gesturing toward the long tiled corridor by the staircase. "The one with the cigarette?" Eric and Marlena stared at her, confused. "We don't smoke." Michelle looked between them, confused but calm. "I thought it was Eric at first, honestly. Tall guy, white shirt, standing with his back turned. Just watching." Eric searched the hallway. Nothing. A week later, Marlena noticed that the radio in the kitchen, an old one left by the previous owner, was turning itself on at 3:10 a.m. Not every night, but often enough that she started writing it down. Always the same kind of music. Sweeping violins, foreign ballads, sometimes old movie scores. Lara's theme from Dr. Zhivago played one night, clear as a needle in her ear. She didn't want to wake Eric, but she stood in the kitchen barefoot, staring at the radio, while that mournful melody filled the room. When she finally told Eric, he laughed. A little too loud. "It's an old house. Maybe it picks up a station or something." She unplugged it the next night. The music still played. They found the photograph during renovations. It was hidden behind a framed piece of Islamic tile art, nailed to the wall in what they were converting into an upstairs reading room. The photo was of a man in a tuxedo, cigarette in hand, mid-laugh. Marlena didn't recognize him at first, but Eric did. "That's Omar Sharif." They Googled it. Same nose, same eyes, the very same smile. It wasn't a press photo, though it felt intimate, personal, taken at home. That same night, the upstairs mirror began fogging over inexplicably. Not with moisture, but with something else. Like fingers had dragged down it from the inside. Eric thought Marlena had done it. She thought Eric had. Then one night, after Marlena had gone to bed early with a migraine, Eric stayed up in the study downstairs. It was past midnight. He was drafting designs on his tablet when he heard a soft knock at the study door. A slow, deliberate knock, 3 taps. "Marlena?" No answer. He opened the door. There was no one there, but he could smell it. That unmistakable scent of strong cologne, earthy, aged, like tobacco and oud. He didn't sleep that night. Marlena was the first to say the word, haunted. Eric scoffed at it, but not convincingly. Not anymore. That summer, the whispers began. They both heard them. Faint Arabic phrases, just below the level of comprehension. Soft and rapid, like an interview on a distant television set. Sometimes, when they walked past the old movie projector room still intact, with canisters of film they hadn't dared touch, Eric swore he heard applause. Like from a live audience. The theater. One night, during a blackout, Marlena lit a candle in the dining room. As she walked toward the mirror with the flame in her hand, she stopped cold. There was a man reflected behind her. His presence was undeniable. Not like a dream, not like a trick of the eye, but real. His face was familiar. That same one from the photo. Only this time he wasn't laughing. He was watching her with something that looked like sorrow. She turned around. Nothing. But the air felt charged. Electric. From that night forward, she refused to be in that room alone. They brought in a local historian from the university. An elderly man named Dr. El-Taib, who specialized in Egyptian cinema. He walked through the house like someone visiting a shrine. "This was one of his favorite places," he said softly. He used to say this house kept his heart when the world pulled the rest of him away. Omar Sharif had died in 2015, alone in Cairo. His funeral was modest by Egyptian standards, though the world mourned. But something had stayed behind. "We do not say ghosts," Dr. El-Taib said. "We say ruh, spirit, memory. Some places do not forget their owners." The Whitmores stayed until late 2024. They never saw the figure directly again, but they felt him. When Eric watched old Sharif films on his laptop in the living room, he swore the room got warmer, brighter. When Marlena cried over a miscarriage no one else knew about, the radio played again. Lara's theme. They left Cairo quietly, gave the house back to the silence it wanted. Today, the house remains empty, and on some nights, a man is seen standing in the upper hallway, smoking, watching, perhaps remembering a line from a script long buried, perhaps waiting for a final curtain that never came. No one enters without feeling him. No one leaves untouched. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story. They left in October. Eric and Marlena, after nearly 2 years in Cairo, packed their lives into crates and wrapped what memories they could in linen and cardboard. They didn't sell the house. Not exactly. The paperwork was left unfinished, no final signatures. No agents called. It was more like they vacated it, as if the house had asked them to go. For 6 months, the villa stood silent. Ivy returned to the arches, reclaiming the balcony railings with velvet green. Dust settled again, this time not as a sign of decay but as a protective skin, as if the house was sleeping. Inside, nothing had changed. Not the scent of oud soaked into the floorboards. Not the photograph of Omar in the upstairs room. Not the mirror in the hall. In March of 2025, the next chapter arrived in the form of a French-Egyptian woman named Yasmina El-Khoury. She was 39, a costume designer for regional theater, known for her reinterpretations of Golden Age Egyptian films. She'd been born in Marseille but returned to Egypt after her mother's death, wanting to reconnect with her family's roots. She came across the Garden City house almost by accident, an anonymous tip sent to her Instagram inbox. No return address. Just a photo of the front gates at sunset and the words, "He never really left." Yasmina didn't believe in ghosts. Not truly. She was drawn more by the romance of it all, the legacy of Omar Sharif, the grandeur of an abandoned estate, the idea of living inside a forgotten film set. And when she first stepped through the iron gate, dust lifting around her ankles, she felt seen. That was the word she used later, when describing it to a friend. "It wasn't that I felt welcome. It was that I felt seen. Like the house knew I was coming." Yasmina moved in with nothing but her cat Doris, a small black shorthair with a folded ear and several trunks of vintage fabric. She made her bedroom on the second floor, in the room where Marlena once saw the man reflected in candlelight. She painted the walls in soft ochre and draped sari cloth across the cracked shutters. The house seemed to respond to her. Doors that once stuck now opened with ease. The old phonograph in the parlor, long considered broken, began playing again, softly, scratchy, like it was remembering. She'd wind it up and it would play unfamiliar instrumentals. Not Western, not quite Arabic. Something in between. Doris took to sleeping beneath the curved staircase, her eyes never leaving the upper landing. Yasmina would wake at night with the feeling that someone had been standing at her door, not knocking, not moving, just present. That kind of stillness that sets your heartbeat out of rhythm. The next morning, she'd find the mirror by the window fogged again, like breath had been pressed against it. She tried to rationalize it, told herself it was Cairo's spring humidity, or her own exhaustion. But then the cigarette began to appear. It started with a single ash, left on the carved stone of the balcony outside her bedroom. It hadn't been there the night before. Yasmina didn't smoke. No one had visited. The next day, 2 ashes. Then 3. Always in the same spot beside the empty brass ashtray that had come with the house. The ash was old school, filterless, like the kind smoked in the 60s. She checked the cameras she'd installed for safety. Nothing. No movement. Just a flicker of static at 3:10 a.m. every night. Then came the nights when she woke to the smell. Strong and elegant, just like Marlena had described. Cologne and smoke, blended with time. It wasn't unpleasant. It was nostalgic. Like walking past a man in a velvet suit in an old Cairo cinema. One night, she sat up in bed and said aloud, "Are you here?" The phonograph started in the parlor below. Not a melody this time. A voice, played like an old tape. Crackling, worn, male, soft, Arabic, measured. Ana kanta hib hatha al-makan. I used to love this place. Yasmina froze. The words repeated twice. Then the record player stopped. Just clicked off like it had never played at all. She sat there, under the moonlight, feeling something tighten inside her. Not fear. Not yet. But a dawning realization that she had stepped into something unfinished. A grief not yet folded into history. There had always been one door she couldn't open. The study. Located behind the kitchen, down a narrow stone corridor. The key had been missing. The lock rusted shut. But on the morning after the voice, she found the door ajar. Inside, the air was different. Still preserved. Not dusty like the rest of the house. On the desk, a pile of handwritten letters in French and Arabic, bundled together with a ribbon so old it broke at her touch. The letters were love letters. Unsent. Undated. Some addressed to a C. Others to no one at all. One line, written in neat, slanted French, repeated across multiple pages. Je ne suis jamais vraiment Part 1. I never truly left. She found herself weeping without knowing why. It happened during a storm. Thunder echoed over Cairo. Rain slapped the tiled roof like angry hands. Yasmina had fallen asleep in the parlor, lulled by the sounds of old Sharif films she'd played on her laptop. Funny Girl, Lawrence of Arabia. Doris hissed. When she woke, the power was out. She lit a candle and turned toward the hallway mirror. And that's when she saw him, clear as glass. Not a reflection. Not a trick. A man in a white shirt, collar open. Hair dark. Eyes unreadable. He wasn't looking at her. He was looking through the mirror, like a window, like he wasn't trapped inside, but on the other side of something deeper. He raised a hand to the glass. Just once. Then the mirror cracked from top to bottom with a sound like a matchstick snapping. And yet she stayed. Yasmina hasn't moved out. Not yet. She's written about the house in her journal pages and pages she never shares. She speaks to Omar sometimes. Not because she's afraid, but because she believes he listens. She sets fresh cigarettes on the brass tray at night. Plays his films in the background while she works. Leaves the cracked mirror where it is. Something still lingers. In the sound of applause at 2 a.m. In the scent of a passing shadow. In the silence between whispers. The house is not done telling its story. And Yasmina? She's not finished hearing it. It was late August when the final sign appeared, when the story stopped being soft glances and ashes on the balcony, and instead took the shape of something real, something undeniable. It began, as it often did, in the stillness. Yasmina had not slept well in weeks. The dreams were coming more frequently now, dreams of a dark red curtain drawn slowly across a theater screen, of a man pacing behind it, waiting to go on stage. The man never had a face. Not fully. Sometimes she saw the collar of a white shirt, sometimes the outline of a cigarette between his fingers. But she always woke up before he stepped through the curtain. One afternoon, during the final days of Cairo's oppressive summer, the air in the house turned unusually dry. She'd opened all the windows, trying to summon a breeze, when she heard a distinct thump from the study. She walked in slowly. The room, unchanged for months, now carried a smell like dry film, celluloid, paper, and iron. On the floor, A wooden box, no bigger than a shoebox. It had not been there before. Or maybe it had, hidden under the desk's overhang, waiting for her to notice. Inside were 4 tightly wound reels of 16mm film. No labels, no canisters, just film. She took them to a friend at the Cairo Cinematheque, a quiet archivist named Rami. He agreed to screen them privately on a weekday morning. The reels were delicate. One had already begun to crack along its edges from age. But what they saw, it was not a film anyone had ever heard of. The footage was clearly home shot. No title card, no music. The first reel opened with a static shot of a man standing in the very parlor of Yasmina's house, the exact same space, decades earlier. The furniture was different, yet the bones of the room were unmistakable. Ornate carvings, archways, the long mirror before it ever cracked. The man in the reel was Omar Sharif. Not acting, not smiling, just standing there. He lit a cigarette and looked at the camera for a long moment, then turned away and began speaking in French. The microphone was poor, the audio faded, but Yasmina could still make out some of it. Sometimes I think we leave pieces of ourselves behind. In rooms, in books, in the hearts of people we can no longer reach. This house is full of ghosts. Some mine, some others. Perhaps I'll become one too. He laughed after saying that. Not a performer's laugh. Tired one. The reel ended abruptly, mid-frame. No credits. Rami turned to her in the dark room and whispered, "What is this?" She didn't answer, because she already knew. 2 weeks later, Yasmina received a letter in an envelope so yellowed it seemed older than her. It had no postage, only her name written in ink with careful, almost theatrical handwriting. Inside, a typed note. He always meant for someone to find it. But not just anyone. Someone who would care. Someone who would listen. The house is yours now. But not only yours. See, there was no return address. No phone number. She read the letter again and again, and the more she did, the more convinced she became that C was the unnamed recipient of the unsent letters she had found in the study. A woman? A lover? A co-star from decades past? She didn't know. And perhaps it didn't matter. What mattered was that someone else had heard him, too. That night, the house changed again. The air turned still, not heavy, not oppressive but expectant. Yasmina lit candles in every room, one by one, until the house was glowing like a stage before the show. She placed the photograph of Omar, still slightly curled, at the corners on the mantel in the parlor. She opened the window beside it and placed the old brass ashtray there, this time with a fresh cigarette already resting inside. She didn't light it. She simply waited. It was 3:10 a.m. when she heard the projector. Not the phonograph. Not the radio. The projector. It whirred to life from the movie room upstairs, long sealed. Never used. She hadn't even opened the shutters in that space, afraid of damaging the fragile reels stored in dusty boxes. She climbed the stairs slowly, barefoot. The hallway was cool. The cracked mirror on the wall shimmered under the flickering light from below. In the projection room, the reel spun without film, just spinning like a wheel with nowhere to go. And then he was there. Not a ghost, not a shadow, a man, standing beside the machine, hand on the reel, eyes watching her. It was Omar. Not young, not old, somewhere in between, suspended in memory. He looked at her with something close to peace. He didn't speak. He just nodded. Once. Then the projector stopped spinning. The image was gone. The room dark again. Yasmina never saw him again after that night. But the mirror never fogged again. The footsteps never returned. The cigarette tray remained untouched, even when she left fresh ones. Whatever had lingered had finally stepped through the curtain. She still lives in the house, quietly. She writes now memoirs, screenplays, essays, sometimes about him, sometimes not, but always with the sense that she is not entirely alone in the craft. And every once in a while she opens the letters in the study, reads them like poetry, like echoes. There is no plaque on the house, no mention of Omar Sharif in its listing, no tourists, no fanfare, But those who pass by in the heat of Cairo's evenings, walking beneath the flowering vines and the high stone walls, sometimes say they feel a presence, like something is watching from the window above, not haunting, just remembering, just waiting for the next curtain to rise. The house is no longer silent. It is listening. It is ready. Don't forget to subscribe and like if you liked this story.